Hi, my friends. Leo Babauta from Zen Habits here. I am excited to be here with you. In this video, we're going to talk about aging, my own personal philosophy on aging, and how I refuse to accept the limitations of aging, the usual way that we think about aging. So I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to share some of my secrets of aging well, and really how I've been approaching it lately. So hopefully this is a useful thing to you, whether you're in your 30s and 40s, maybe you're with me in your 50s or beyond. So a couple of years ago, I turned 50. I'm now 52 as I record this. I don't feel, like I'm limited. I don't feel like I need to slow down. I don't feel like my quality of life is getting any worse as I get into my 50s. And I refuse to accept the way that most people think about themselves as they age, the way that most people think about aging and getting older. By the way, I have been noticing since I turned 50 the rampant ageism that exists in our society. People make jokes about getting old, about themselves getting old. They use it as an insult. You're so old. They dismiss older people. They talk about aging and getting old as if it's some kind of curse. Um, and the weird thing is, we're all going to do it unless you're very unlucky and you don't get to get into old age. We are all going to be aging and getting older and older, and every one of us faces that. And yet there's a fear of it, there's a judgment of it, there's this whole kind of conceptual framework around aging that is very disparaging. And, I totally get it. I too have had fear of aging. I don't anymore. It comes up once in a while, like any fear, but it is not something that I hold as something that's bad or that I'm afraid of. And so I'm going to talk about my mindset around that, but also like why I think most people are afraid of aging. So why are people afraid of aging? I think it's because we kind of start to lose some things about ourselves as we get older. For example, like maybe I think I'm young and fit and attractive and energetic and, vivacious or whatever it is you think of yourself. As you start to get older, you might lose some of that. I've lost my hair. Well, I shave it, but I was definitely losing it before I started shaving it. And that's, very hard. It's a loss of who you were. Maybe you lose your hair color and your hair turns gray or white. And you're like, for me, my metabolism has slowed down and it's harder to maintain my trim figure, right? And so that's a loss. I can't do athletic things the way that I did when I was in my 20s. And that's a loss, right? And so we start to lose this kind of feeling of who we are into this other version of who we are that we might not think of as ourselves. So our identity starts to shift, and that feels like a loss. It is a loss, actually. So we fear that loss. But there's something I think even more scary, which is powerlessness. We don't like to feel powerless anytime, right? If someone takes away our choice, it pisses us off, right? We don't like to feel powerless. We don't like to feel powerless in any situation. We try not to be. When we do feel powerless, we hate it. Well, aging it feels like a descent into powerlessness. And in some ways it is, right? We might lose mobility. We might lose the ability to take care of ourselves, especially if we have, dementia or something like that. We might lose the ability to shower ourselves and use the bathroom on our own and drive ourselves. All of these things that we think of as personal power, as sacredness, kind of our personal kind of way of being in the world with some agency, that starts to go away. We lose that one step at a time. That's very scary, right? And so powerlessness is equated with aging. And to some degree, it is true. We will all lose some of these things at some point. That said, I refuse to age in that way. in the way that we all kind of think of as aging. I am going to maintain my physicality into my 80s. Now, I can't speak for my 90s. I've seen my 90-year-old, she's 96 now, my 96-year-old grandmother, and she's lost some of her physicality. She used to be, be active in her garden even at the age of 90. At 96, she's on her way out and she's lost a lot of her physicality. But I've seen people in their mid 80s who are active. I knew someone who was 80 and climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. I've seen people who are running ultra marathons and doing Ironman races in their 80s. And this is men and women of all, backgrounds, economic, uh, cultural backgrounds, all of these kinds of things. It's all possible. Um, in our 70s and 80s, in our 60s, in our 50s, in our 40s. There isn't a decade, I don't know about the 90s, I can't really say, but every other decade before that, I have seen people do amazing physical things um, at any age. And so that is what I hold for myself. Now, will I be able to achieve that? Who knows, right? I can't control every single thing. I might get injured, I might get sick, who knows? But that is what I am shooting for. And I'm going to do everything that I can to set myself up for that kind of success. So I'm exercising and I'm exercising in some specific ways that I think are going to help me to achieve that. And I'll talk about what I'm doing later. Um, I'm also eating in specific ways, and I'll talk about what I'm doing in the nutrition area later. But those are things that I'm doing to set myself up for that because I refuse to age in the way that we think of, people as they get older. And I have no judgment for people who lose mobility, who find it hard to climb stairs or, do anything. That happens to a lot of people, and it's not like there's some thing that they did wrong. So it's not a judgmental thing, but it's just I personally refuse to kind of go quietly into that good night. So that's one. Another one is we see aging people as irrelevant. I don't know why that's the case because aging people often have the most wisdom, the most experience, the most knowledge, and yet we kind of push them off into some kind of irrelevance. That is ridiculous. And I refuse to be considered irrelevant, especially to myself. Now, others might see me that way because of their prejudices. I don't care. That is not my concern. My concern is, do I accept irrelevance? And the answer is no. I am going to continue to create, continue to serve, continue to be in community, continue to do meaningful work for as long as I possibly can until they pry my computer away from me. So, good luck. But I refuse to accept that. So that's another way that I refuse to age in the way that we normally think of as aging. Now, my body is going to change. I know that. Hair is already turning mostly white. That's okay. I don't care about hair. Wrinkles will come. I don't care about that. I might not be at the same body fat that I was when I was 30. That's okay. I wasn't that thin at 30, but anyway, doesn't matter. Uh, my metabolism will slow down. I might have some diseases of aging. My mind might slow down as well. All of that might be true. Those things are inevitable. And for those things that I don't have the power to change, my mindset is I accept those as gracefully as I can. I don't care about wrinkles. I don't care about white hair. It's not a big deal to me. My eyebrows are going to turn fully white. They have some gray in them now. Fine. My beard and hair are, I would say, at least 50% gray or white. I'm okay with that. Wrinkles are appearing. My skin is a little looser than normal. All okay. I accept that with as much grace as I can possibly muster. So for those things that I can't change, my mindset is to accept. Um, I refuse to accept irrelevance, and I refuse to lose physicality to the extent that I can have some influence over that. And then finally, I refuse to lose adventurousness. A lot of people, as they get older, and this is not a judgmental thing that I have against them, but a lot of them just naturally start to shrink into their comfort zones, me included. And I refuse to accept that, shrinking into a smaller and smaller comfort zone. I am on an adventure in life. I am here to learn. I am here to get curious. I'm here to be uncomfortable. And I will continue to do that into every decade that I am able to enter. Now, maybe I'm not going to be able to enter every single decade. Maybe I'll lose life before then. That's fine. I'm not afraid of death. And that is another part um, of aging that I refuse to accept is the fear of death, of like trying to like fight against death. I am not afraid of death. I want to live a great life for as long as I can, and then I don't care if I lose it. But with all of that said, let me talk about the physicality of aging, what I'm doing in that regard. There is a mental training as well. You know, a lot of you know I've talked about me studying chess this year. I have really found that if you don't challenge your brain in certain ways, you start to lose it. And so I'm going to be challenging my brain in various ways. Chess was an example of that. Writing is another one. I plan to continue challenging my brain and really making it do these heavy lifting as much as possible for as long as I live. Not just doing Sudoku, which is amazing, or crossword puzzles, which is amazing, but really heavy lifting as much as I can. Okay, so that brings me to the physicality. So first of all, from my study of aging, there's a handful of factors that we can control that make a big difference. So the first one is our cardiovascular health. To do that, to have good cardiovascular health, which really affects our mind, our heart, heart disease, metabolism kind of diseases, cancer, all of that kind of stuff. To have good cardiovascular health, you have to exercise it on a regular basis. I do some kind of cardiovascular activity just about every single day, whether it's walking, or a light jog, or some kind of, playing basketball or some kind of sport, or, riding a bike, or doing something that gets my heart rate going for, at least 20 minutes, ideally longer. I do that every single day, sometimes longer, much longer than 20 minutes. And so, zone two cardio is a kind of a catchphrase these days, but it is actually where I think a lot of us need to be for a lot, 80% of our exercise, I think could be at zone two, which is this pace where you can have a conversation, but be like maybe slightly out of breath. So you're not going to be wheezing, but you also are going to have a little bit of a breathiness to your conversation if you were to talk. So we want to be going kind of at that pace, about 80%. It doesn't have to be exact. I don't think you need to stress over the details, but just be doing some kind of cardio so that your heart is, nice and healthy. Your whole cardiovascular system is healthy, and that will then make your brain healthy and every single cell in your body healthier. So I believe in that wholeheartedly. I have believed in it for the last 20 years. And it's really helped me. I feel like it's helped me to stave off kind of some condition, the worsening of my physical condition for a long time now. Second is harder exercise. So that would be like interval training, sprinting, running up hills, doing things that really like tire you out, that you can't maintain for very long. Anything where you're just like exerting yourself really intensely. We need to do that if we want to maintain the same kind of physicality that we had before. If you want to be able to explosively take off and sprint for a little while, you have to be doing that regularly. It has to be a part of your training. And so for me, of course, that only comes after you've built a nice base and your body is able to tolerate the faster paces. But for me, that might mean doing some sprint intervals a couple of times a week. And that could be a varied kind of sprint intervals. Maybe it's sometimes up hills, maybe it's 30-second sprints with a minute rest, maybe it's 90-second, faster pace, or 2 minutes or 5 minutes with rest, and then repeat that a few times. Um, I'm still working out, what I like to do, but that is a key part of my plan right now is to maintain the explosiveness and the ability to go hard. Now, related to that is strength training. So that would be the third area. So cardiovascular, hard exertion, and then strength training. Strength training is lifting weights or doing push-ups, something where you are making those muscles work hard. And to do that, I would start out light, but eventually you want to like be doing things that are really hard, that really like make you feel exhausted and sore. Not overly so, but to some degree. Like yesterday, I had these heavy dumbbells and I was doing these kind of Romanian deadlifts with them, along with some shoulder presses. The day before that, I did bench presses and squats. Um, and I did some cardiovascular activity in both of those days. Today I'm feeling sore. I'm gonna do some push-ups with my daughter in a little bit. We're doing a push-up challenge where we do 5 sets of push-ups, but I'm not gonna do too much more than that. Um, but the idea is every week, at least twice a week, maybe 3 or even 4 times if you want to be ambitious, but 2 or 3 times a week doing some kind of weight training. Now, ease into that, do it with proper form. You might want to get a trainer, however you would need to do it. But for me, I've been doing it for a while and I have pretty decent form and understanding of what can get me injured. And so now I do it, very regularly. I actually work out with family members. 2 days ago, when I did the squats and bench, I worked out with my son, who's an adult, and then my adult daughter and my wife yesterday with the exercises. So, I'm working out with other people, but I work out on my own as well. And I think the exact lifts that you do are not that important, but we want to be able to maintain our muscle mass. In older age, we lose muscle mass. And so I really highly recommend um, not just giving it up easily. Having some stronger muscles also allows you to protect yourself against injury, which then will protect you against losing your physicality. If you get injured, you start to exercise less, things start to go downhill. It's a downward spiral from there. That doesn't mean injury has to be the end of the world, but that often is the thing that leads people to moving less and being less active. So exercising, having some, strength, some muscle, um, it protects you against those kinds of injuries. Doesn't prevent it, but it protects you. And also allows you to recover from injuries better. It also is going to allow me to like do, physical things with family members. Into old age. And I want to be doing physical things, hiking and, you know, carrying groceries and helping people move, all those kinds of things into my 50s, I'm in my 50s, but 60s and 70s and 80s, I plan to be doing those things. And the way I'm going to do that is through some strength. So those are the three things that I'm doing that I think are really important um, for that physicality into older age. And then nutrition wise, you might know I'm a vegan, and I don't think everybody needs to be a vegan. I think being a vegan makes some things easier. I eat more whole foods because I'm a vegan. I eat plenty of vegetables, plenty of fruits, nuts, beans, seeds, whole grains. All of those things are very easy because, I don't have a lot of choices otherwise. You can eat processed foods as a vegan for sure, but I try and stay away from those and eat 95% whole foods. Um, and so it's very easy for me to get a lot of great nutrients through my food, a lot of plant foods. So I eat whole foods, nutritious plant foods, fiber heavy. I eat way double the fiber that's recommended to most adults. Um, and then I also eat high protein. And to do that as a vegan is actually a little bit harder, but not that hard. And so lately I've been eating TVP, which is a protein that's very cheap if you order in bulk. I've been eating tofu, I've been eating beans, I've been eating seitan, I've been eating tempeh, uh, you know, vegan protein powder, which is pea, for me, it's pea and rice protein powder. I do those after workouts. So I get plenty of protein. I get more than 100 grams of protein, sometimes 170 grams of protein every day. That's a lot. I don't think people need more than that. I don't think everybody needs that much, but I believe in a protein heavy, plant heavy diet. Not a lot of sugar, not a lot of alcohol, not a lot of processed foods, not a lot of flour or white rice. So I eat some of that, but not a lot. So I've been cutting back on that stuff, which I think really kind of and fried foods degrades your diet quality and your health. And I have protein heavy, fiber heavy, plant heavy, nutrient heavy meals every single day. And I feel like it's really supporting gut health, gut biome. It's supporting me getting all the nutrients I need, and especially the nutrients I need to be as active as as I described in my training plan. Okay, that's what I'm doing in terms of how I actual practical things. And as I said, the mindset is accept what I can't change, and then don't accept the kind of usual ways of doing things into older age. I am going to rage into my old age in a way that I think is lit up and it feels amazing. I hope this has been helpful. This doesn't mean that I judge anyone who's doing anything different. We all have our path. It also doesn't mean that you have to do it this way. I'm only sharing one person's perspective, but I refuse to age in the way that most people think about it. And if you'd like to join me, I've shared all my secrets. Thanks, my friends. I'll talk to you later. Please give this a thumbs up if this was helpful. Leave a comment. Subscribe to get more of these videos every week. And share it with people who could use some Zen habits in their lives. Thanks, my friends.